About the main character of the story, Gatsby. Gatsby had been born under the name James Gatz in North Dakota. His parents were devout farmers who had never tasted prosperity. 17 years old, Gatsby was working a salmon hunt on the shore of Lake Superior when an opportunity came to attach himself to a drunken millionaire copper mine owner who was riding on a cruise ship, and from there, with a grip and teeth, to begin the difficult path of upward progress. Out of all these lies and dishonesty, an unflinching truth appears. The image that Scott Fitzgerald presents of Gatsby is a picture made up of hints and incredible truths and hearsay lies of guests who whisper in earshot that Gatsby is the nephew or cousin of Kaiser Germany, perhaps Hindenburg's cousin and perhaps a cousin of the naughty. Once we hear Gatsby had been a spy for the Germans, a couple of times we hear that he is in the business of smuggling liquor, and several times we are told that Adam had killed. The way it happened is that Tom has a friend who goes under the car that Daisy drives and doesn't stop after the accident. The woman is killed and her husband falsely thinks that Gatsby is the killer of the woman. The husband finds Gatsby's trail and shoots him. When Gatsby is gone, Tom and Daisy are back in their money. They're missing. They're great or in the same thing that would bind them together. The narrator of the story, Nick, when he says goodbye to Gatsby for the last time and compares him to those around him, people who, when they go on a half-hour car ride, have to take half a bottle of whiskey with them, he turns back and shouts, "The congregation is messed up. You value alone as much as they are with everyone." We later discover that some of this content is straight. Gatsby was really a war hero, really went to Oxford University, though only for 5 months, using a sort of government exchange for soldiers returning from the war, and actually owned a number of pharmacies. But in his recent work, his aid worker was a fraud gambler with whom Gatsby Ebessa sat in the bullring business on the outcome of the final round of the 1919 American baseball tournament to conspire with, and what was sold in these pharmacies was homemade alcohol. Whether or not Gatsby actually killed anyone is never made clear, though it is unlikely that he killed anyone either. Gatsby maintains his innocence despite living in the heart of a corrupting tradition. Of course, there is no doubt that Gatsby is legally criminal, but until the end of the work remains a tough and non-demure romantic creature that the force before the driver and the look of his existence is love for Dizzy. Gatsby finally pays an exorbitant compensation without the least remorse for having lived a unit dream for too long. By his claim, his parents were rich people from the Midwest. He was an army major in the World War, took many badges for his bravery, and after he went to Oxford University, traveled in the capitals of Europe, painted, became a jewel collector and went hunting predatory beasts. Gatsby himself says the heirloom that had come to him in an adventure he vaguely calls the Great Anxiety, the anxiety of war. Lost, and then claims to have once again gotten rich from the medicine business and oil work. The Great Gatsby is a perfect example of a reckoned novel, thought, plot, map, first draft, corrected draft, unscripted and yet again, distorted and adjusted to the last moments of print. A review of the first chapter of the book could shed light on this. All of the novel's main people, with the exception of Wilson, come together in its first chapter. Thus, the first chapter of the summary becomes a capsule of all books and even its theme, that the irreconcilable conflict of dream on the one hand and reality on the other. In addition, The Great Gatsby is highly regarded in terms of its story writing technique, the use of the narrator, and the use of symbolic components, like the green light in the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg, is a successful novel. The Great Gatsby book summary. The Great Gatsby is a very tall short story of a self-made man, from a 30-something young Baz Bahadur Shikposh who owns a long span and longitudinal house on Long Island and is in this house that gives enormous banquets and at the same time feels lonely. The man is in love with a rich girl named Daisy Biokny, who saw him for the first time in 1917, when he was a Moflesi officer himself and Daisy was not yet married to the very rich Tom Biokny. The Great Gatsby novel was first published in America in 1925, and soon became one of the most successful American novels. In most lists introduced for study, The Great Gatsby holds a special place. In the list of 100 of the world's leading novels compiled by Modern Libre, dedicated to writing written in English, The Great Gatsby takes second place.